The Avengers was the culmination of all the Phase 1 Marvel movies. Spearheaded by Kevin Feige, the Avengers brought multiple years of setup together and created a blockbuster movie that changed cinema. The success of the Avengers is why everyone wants their own cinematic universe now. It's just that everyone else who tries it kind of suck at it.
The red capes are coming.
So yeah, everyone wants their cinematic universe of box office domination. The Avengers is why Sony attempted their own Spider-Man cinematic universe before realizing how stupid that was and making their deal with Marvel. Wait, they're still trying to do it? Oh, Jesus Christ. But yeah, the Avengers is why Transformers are going to do a movie universe too, and of course why DC started their cinematic universe. You know, DC's doing pretty good. I mean, they only have one movie out, but it was really good and... What? Oh, we don't talk about those other ones. Why, you ask? Because they kinda sucked. Unfortunately, the MCU, while definitely having its flaws, it's still the most successful at the movie universe concept. Maybe that's why Iron Fist and Inhumans suck. Because they've got the movie stuff down, but not the TV stuff. Getting off track. Anyway, so no one has been able to surpass Marvel, or even come close really to the same critical and commercial success that they've achieved. A big problem that many other attempted cinematic universes suffer from is the world building. They all want to jump to the Avengers-esque movie without any of the same build-up or effort that Marvel put into it. You can say whatever you want about the MCU, but you can't deny the time that went into building up to the Avengers. Was the build-up perfect? No. But they've done it way better than anyone else. When people say the DC Extended Universe feels rushed, it's not necessarily because they didn't have the same amount of movies to build up to Justice League. I mean, we got 4 movies before we got to Justice League, and the MCU had 5 before the Avengers. No, the problem is the pieces coming together. When you look at the Avengers, how much stuff was in that movie that we hadn't already been introduced to? We'd had 2 movies with Iron Man, and Thor, Cap and Hulk each got their own solo movie to focus on them. We'd met the villain Loki already in Thor 1, and the Tesseract was already an important plot device in Cap's solo movie. We'd met S.H.I.E.L.D. already through the Phase 1 films, and we'd seen Nick Fury before. Black Widow was introduced as a supporting player in Iron Man 2, and Hawkeye got a cameo in Thor. Heck, even Selvig working for S.H.I.E.L.D. was set up at the end of Thor. The only real big things introduced in the Avengers was the Chitauri themselves and the Helicarrier. Everything else we knew. We knew who all the characters were, so there was no tedious setup required. The pieces were pretty much already there. Doing Avengers-like stuff is like a school project. If you cut corners to complete the project, chances are it isn't going to be very good. Yeah, you got a finished product quicker, but it's probably hot garbage. That's what a lot of attempts at cinematic universes are, unfortunately. They're pretty bad. They're all cutting corners. The big reason the DCEU is being described as rushing things is because of one movie, Batman v Superman. Yeah, that movie. The difference between the DCEU and the MCU is that Marvel spread out its pieces over their Phase 1 movies. DC took a different approach. They forced a majority of their Justice League setup into Batman v Superman, and boy does that movie suffer for it. Really think about this. Really think about all the stuff that is forced into BVS. We get the introduction of Batman, the introduction of Wonder Woman, we get cameos for Flash, Cyborg and Aquaman. We get Parademons, Darkseid, Steppenwolf, time travel, potentially evil Superman when he comes back, Superman dying so he can be resurrected in Justice League, mother boxes, etc. A huge chunk of Justice League setup has been forced into one movie. Screen Junkies made this joke a while back and I'm gonna steal it. They should have called Batman v Superman Batman featuring Superman, Rush to the Justice League. That title is so accurate that it's not even funny. DC haven't spread their setup out like Marvel did. If you don't spread butter on toast properly, it's just clumpy. That's Batman v Superman. It's a clumpy movie because everything has been forced into it. Even the concept of heroes coming together is introduced in that movie.
Help me find the others like you.
Find us, Bruce! You have to find us!
Whereas we got teasers of the Avengers initiative throughout the Phase 1 MCU movies. My argument isn't that Justice League is going to fail because they didn't do things like Marvel, but The Amazing Spider-Man 2 failed because it was more focused on setting stuff up than being its own movie. Same with The Mummy. World building does not come first, story and character does. It's the same thing with emotional moments in films. If you don't care about anything happening because there was no build-up or they didn't develop characters properly, then something like a death scene will feel cheap and hollow. Oh. Moving on. Think about how much setup has gone into Infinity War. 18 movies by the time Thanos finally takes center stage. 18 freaking movies! Imagine if they tried Infinity War in like Phase 1. It'd be a disaster on every level because they'd have to introduce the Guardians and Doctor Strange and Spider-Man and so on all in one movie. It wouldn't work. It would be a giant train wreck and a mess. Even big comic stories usually had tons of setup. Think about how much was established before they did the Infinity Gauntlet storyline in the comics, which Infinity War is taking inspiration from. For simplicity's sake, let's say the modern Marvel Universe began in 1961 with Fantastic Four. We didn't see Infinity Gauntlet until 30 years later. We didn't see Thanos versus the Marvel Universe until 30 years of Marvel Comics. And that comic even had a mini-series called Thanos Quest leading up to it. Hell, the first Infinity Stone was introduced in the 70s, so those have been around for a good long while too. When you went into the story, they built up to it. You knew who Thanos was, and you knew all the heroes charging into battle against him were. Hell, the first big event comic for Marvel was Secret Wars, and that was published 23 years after Fantastic Four, and the only real characters that were introduced were Spider-Woman and the Beyonder. Hell, the first Avengers comic didn't introduce anything at all. We'd met everyone previously in other comics. Again, the DCEU feels so rushed because they just dumped all the setup into one movie. And despite all of this, we still need to properly flesh out Cyborg, Aquaman and Flash and Justice League. And we need to flesh out Steppenwolf and yeah, there's a lot of pressure on this movie. It's really hard to establish heaps of characters in one movie and make it work. When DC tried that before, well, that movie fell flat on its face. However, this doesn't necessarily mean Justice League won't be able to succeed. I have my concerns, but I really try to go into these movies with a positive outlook. To me, it's silly to walk into a movie wanting to hate it. And the trailers definitely have their moments, so let's all hope for it to be good. So, how will Justice League turn out? Hell if I know. All I can say is, if you want to establish a cinematic universe, you do it slowly. Don't try to dump all the puzzle pieces into one pile and expect everything to come together all at once without any effort put into it. DC have hopefully learned their lesson and won't try to do this kind of rushing again later on. The MCU's biggest strength is that they've done things at a good pace. Movies like The Avengers and Civil War work so well because a lot of time and effort was put into building to those films. Let's hope it all pays off for Infinity War and fingers crossed that Justice League is good. This is the Groovy Movie Man, signing out.